After my fiancée canceled our wedding for her assistant, my mother was critically ill, but she took all my salary and went traveling. After learning that I willingly gave my patent to her favorite assistant to boost his resume, my typically marriage-averse CO fiancé finally agreed to marry me, fulfilling my dying mother's last wish. But on our wedding day, just because her assistant threw a jealous fit and threatened to hurt himself, my fiancé abandoned our wedding and took him on a world tour to cheer him up. My mother's condition worsened from the shock. I approached my fiancée, begging her to return the salary she had been keeping for years so I could pay for my mother's surgery. She said I was being unreasonable and had her bodyguards throw me out, then sweetly boarded the plane with her assistant. By the time I limped to the hospital, my mother had already died. I handled the funeral arrangements alone and accepted a job offer from a major company. When I was returning my work badge, my ex-fiancée had just returned from her world tour. With a satisfied look, she said, "I had to leave on an urgent business trip that day. Standing you up wasn't intentional. I'll make it up to you with another wedding, so you and your mother can both be happy. That should be enough, right?" But she didn't know that from the moment my mother died, I had decided to let go of my feelings for her. Just as I removed my badge, preparing to return it to HR, I ran into my ex-fiancée Shunyu, who had just returned from her trip. She stared at the badge in my hand and frowned. "Han Xiao, what are you doing?" I was confused. I was leaving the job, so naturally I had to return the badge. If not for the work handover, I would have left already. Besides, Shunyu had approved my resignation a week ago, so why was she making that face now? Just as I was about to explain about my resignation, I was interrupted by Shunyu's male assistant Ji Yang. "Brother Han Xiao, are you resigning?" His eyes turned slightly red as he tugged at Shunyu's sleeve. "Director Shun, Brother Han Xiao must be angry about the wedding. That's why he's quitting. I shouldn't have let you accompany me on that business trip back then. Now look what's happened. I've become the villain who damaged your relationship." As he spoke, Jiang didn't forget to give me a provocative glance. I immediately understood what was happening. Xinyu trusted Jiang completely. He knew her phone and account passwords. It seemed this approval was his handiwork. But I didn't expose him. Even if I told Xinyu, she wouldn't believe me and would instead accuse me of being jealous. Seeing my silence, Xinyu thought I was acquiescing and coldly reprimanded. "Han Xiao, I told you that I was absent from the wedding due to a last-minute business trip. Do you really need to be so petty about it? I'm already exhausted after a week-long BU. Sinus trip. Can't you be a little more understanding? Can't you learn from Xiao Yang? Set aside our personal relationship and put company interests first." In an instant, my colleagues cast contemptuous glances at me, saying that a love-obsessed freeloader like me was completely unworthy of a career-driven powerhouse like Xinyu. But I found it laughable. Everyone thought I was being supported by Xinyu, but that wasn't the case at all. All these years, Xinyu got all the credit and benefits from the company projects, but in reality, I was the one doing most of the difficult and tedious work. This patent was something I had worked hard to develop, but just because Ji Yang expressed admiration for it, Xinyu wanted me to give the patent to him to boost his reputation. When I disagreed, she gave me the cold shoulder. Not wanting to upset her health, I chose to compromise. The wedding was her compensation to me. But on the wedding day, she ran away for Ji Yang. As for her saying she was on a business trip, that's just an excuse. She has been traveling around the world with Ji Yang this week. Because Ji Yang would occasionally send me photos of their sweet vacation together and send voice messages taunting me that I wasn't as favored as him. In the past, hearing Xinyu say this would have made me so angry I could have jumped. Nowadays, I can only smile calmly. "You're right. I really am not as good as Ji Yang. So I resigned, and the company is left to you and Ji Yang." Xinyu stared at me intently, and after a while, pulled me aside and whispered, "Han Xiao, I didn't expect to be sent on a business trip suddenly. I wasn't intentionally standing you up. There are so many people here. Can we talk about this when we get back, okay?" All these years, Xinyu has always used business trips as an excuse to date Ji Yang. She thought she was hiding it well, but little did she know, I've known about it for a long time. Out of consideration for our past feelings, I gave her chance after chance, but she just trampled on my sincerity without care. I coldly withdrew my hand without saying a word. Xinyu couldn't help but clench her hand. In the past, I was always easy to appease, but today I was unusually cold. Before she could figure out why, I had already limped backward, putting distance between us. Only then did Xinyu notice my foot injury. "Han Xiao, your leg." Suddenly, as if remembering something, guilt flashed in her eyes. She moved closer and softened her tone. "Those bodyguards were too rough. No matter what, you're still my fiancé. I'll dock all their wages right away to make it up to you, okay?" I found it extremely ironic. Wasn't she the one who had me beaten up in the first place? A week ago, after Xinyu ran away from her wedding, my mother was so angry that she suffered a heart attack and urgently needed medical expenses. I rushed to the airport to intercept Xinyu, wanting to get my salary back to pay for my mother's surgery. But she didn't believe me and thought I was being unreasonable, so she had the bodyguards throw me out. It was at that time that my leg was broken from being thrown, and I was misunderstood by bystanders as a persistent, obsessive suitor, suffering all kinds of ridicule. Shinyu, however, boarded the plane with Ji Yong without looking back. Seeing that I remained silent, Shinyu finally used her trump card. She took out a gold necklace from her pocket and waved it at me. Your mom has always wanted a necklace, right? This is one I specially bought for her. Don't keep using your mom's health to deceive me. It's pointless. Looking at the gold necklace before me, its black spots showing where the plating had worn off, I laughed coldly to myself. Specially bought for her. This was clearly just some cheap street vendor merchandise she'd picked up casually, worth even less than one of Yang's buttons. Besides, my mom was dead and couldn't wear necklaces anymore. On the day of my mother's funeral, all the relatives pointed fingers at me, cursing me as unfilial, saying I had angered my mother to death, and that I had brought shame to the Han family. My father was so furious that he disowned me and threw me out of the house. Every time I think of it, my heart feels stuffy and uncomfortable, like it's blocked with damp cotton. I didn't take the necklace, just said indifferently, "No need, my mom has already." Seeing that I repeatedly refused to give her face, Shinyu became somewhat irritated, suppressing her anger while saying gently, "At most, I'll hold another wedding with you the day after tomorrow to satisfy you and your mother's vanity, to make you both happy. That should be good enough, right?" Even though she was the one who did something wrong, she had a look of resignation on her face, as if she had made a great concession. Before this, I had always looked forward to stepping into the marriage hall with her and was very eager for the wedding. But now, I don't care anymore. I was about to refuse when Yang, who was beside me, suddenly cried out in pain, clutching his stomach and exclaiming that it hurt. Shinyu let go of my hand and quickly walked towards Ji Yang, asking with concern, "Xiaoyang, what's wrong?" Ji Yang deliberately spoke in a frail voice. "It's nothing, CEO Shun, my stomach illness is just acting up." But his complexion was rosy. How could he look like a sick person? Despite his poor acting, Shinyu was extremely concerned, abandoning me to take Ji Yang to the hospital. Ji Yang bit his lower lip tightly, feigning sincerity as he said, "Mr. Shun, instead of worrying about me, you should go comfort Brother Han Xiao first, otherwise he'll be angry. I can go to the hospital by myself." Without waiting for me to speak, "Shinyu has aura." Audie answered on my behalf. "He won't be angry. Besides, he will soon be my husband, so he should understand me better. Senior Fuqi Ji Yang, Zhongshun Yaozhou, just took a couple of steps when she seemed to remember me, released her hand from Ji Yang's, and turned around to give me a big hug. "Han Xiao, this is the last time. After we get married, I'll be with you every day." Watching Shunyu's hastily departing figure, I could only manage a bitter smile. "But Shinyu, we don't have a future anymore. From the moment my mother died, we were finished." While I was lost in thought, my phone buzzed with a message, an invitation from the HR of a well-known major company. This time, I didn't refuse and promptly replied, "I accept your company's invitation to." Over the years, major companies have always wanted to recruit me, offering good benefits and triple my current salary. But for Shinyu's sake, I had firmly refused. Only because during the early startup phase, Shinyu needed me. During that period, to secure investments, I drank until my stomach bled. To take the company public, I worked on proposals until I fainted and was hospitalized. Seeing my haggard appearance lying in the hospital bed with tubes all over my body, Shinyu cried until her eyes were red, holding me tightly while promising to love me for life and never betray me. I thought we would only get better. But after the company went public, Shinyu changed. Not only did she discard me after using me, seizing my work achievements to pave the way for Ji Yang, but she also accused me of being a freeloader and denied my abilities. But she forgot that without me, the company would never have gotten off the ground, and she wouldn't have become CEO. Looking back now, I was truly foolish, giving up great prospects for the sake of an illusory relationship. Fortunately, it's not too late. After receiving my response, HR was pleased with my decision. We had a pleasant conversation and set my onboarding for 2 days later. I took a deep breath and began packing up my personal belongings from my workstation. As I left carrying a cardboard box, I heard mockery from my colleagues behind me. Being the CEO's husband doesn't matter when Ji Yang is still stepping all over you. Exactly, look at him, just like a drowning dog. Many of them were people I had personally mentored. When they needed something from me before, they would call me Brother Han, respectfully. But now they were all quick to change their tune, ridiculing me with cold sarcasm. However, I didn't take any of it to heart. The company has grown to its current state entirely because of my support. Once I leave, the company won't be far from bankruptcy. I want to see if they can still laugh on the day the company goes bankrupt. After leaving the elevator, I wanted to take a taxi home, but discovered I didn't even have 10 yuan for the fare in my account. After getting together with Shenyu, she worried I would spend money recklessly, So she made me hand over my entire salary and strictly limited my every expense, requiring her approval for anything over 10 yuan. She always said this was planning for our future, preparing for rainy days. But when money was actually needed, she refused to give it. If not for this, my mother wouldn't have passed away after failed emergency treatment. Thinking about it now, she was clearly withholding my wages under the pretense of managing them. I don't know why Xinyu became like this. In my memory, she was kind and good. Back then, my father ran away after gambling, leaving my mother and me with a mountain of debt. My mother, overwhelmed with grief, developed heart disease. I was hounded by debt collectors every day, and in desperation, considered jumping into the river. It was Xinyu who saved me. She not only helped me pay off the gambling debts, but also paid for my mother's medical expenses and supported my education. Her small act of kindness stayed in my memory for many years. When we met again in college, her family had gone bankrupt, and she, now a fallen heiress, was being bullied. It was I who stood up to protect her, repaying the gambling debt and medical expenses I owed her from before. Later, Xinyu wanted to start a business to revive her family's fortune, and I unhesitatingly took out my savings to support her. Not only to repay the life-saving grace, but also because I like her. After going through hardships, we came together. When we first got together, we would wear matching couple shirts, and even our phone cases were matching. Xinyu would also proudly introduce me as her boyfriend to people around her. I thought we would always be happy together, but then Ji Yong appeared. On the day of the interview, Ji Yong merely smiled slightly, and Xinyu was captivated by his smile, decisively allowing him to join the company. Afterwards, Xinyu repeatedly broke her own principles for Ji Yong. She, who had always strictly limited my expenses, was willing to spend lavishly for Ji Yong. With just one "I like it" from Ji Yong, she bought a $3 million watch without batting an eye. And Xinyu, who had always been rigorous and uncompromising at work, showed exceptional leniency toward Ji Yong. Ji Yong frequently made mistakes at work and repeatedly failed to correct them. Once, just because he misplaced a decimal point, he caused the company to lose millions. Yet Xinyu not only didn't fire him, but instead gave him a promotion and a raise to encourage and comfort him. While I just stayed up late revising a proposal, she harshly scolded me for submitting it 1 second late, saying I was holding the company back and affecting progress. She always says she gives Yang extra care because he's new, but the way she looks at him clearly shows she has feelings for him. Love, indeed the lack of it, are truly obvious. The relationship between us has long since spoiled. I've just been deceiving myself all along, and because of this, I've hurt my mother. Coming back to my senses, with no money for a taxi, I could only carry the cardboard box and walk home. After walking for who knows how long, I suddenly heard commotion nearby. Kiss, kiss, the crowd chanted. I looked up and saw Xinyu and Ji Yong participating in a couple's challenge on the street. Amidst the cheers, Xinyu stood on her tiptoes and gave Ji Yong a quick peck on the cheek, then quickly pulled away, blushing as she nestled into his embrace. Ji Yong naturally held her close. Their sweet actions made passers-by ship them on the spot. Yet, I found it ironic. Back then, when Xinyu and I wanted to sketch a couple's portrait on the street, she refused, saying it was embarrassing. But now, she publicly kissed Ji Yong without any discomfort, instead seeming to enjoy it. It turned out that the only person she found embarrassing was me. I turned to leave, but in that moment, I locked eyes with Xinyu. Upon seeing me, her pupils contracted, and she quickly distanced herself from Ji Yong. Han Xiao, what are you doing here? Before I could say anything, Ji Yong sarcastically chimed in. Brother Han Xiao, what a coincidence to run into you here. Don't get me wrong, I just came out of the hospital with President Shun. It was I who insisted on bringing President Shun to this event. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Provoked by his words, Xinyu frowned, her gaze sharp. Han Xiao, are you following me? Do you think I'm that kind of person? We've been together for 7 years, and you don't even have this little trust in me. If you keep being so unclear and maliciously speculating, I really have to consider whether to marry you. I couldn't help but laugh. Xinyu has never believed my words, always thinking that I am being jealous. The one who maliciously speculates has never been me, but her. Thinking of this, I sneered and said, no need to consider, you should get together with Ji Yong. You've already kissed, so not getting married is unreasonable. I'll support you. After saying that, I ignored Xinyu's pale face and turned to leave. After getting home, the ticketing app popped up with a successful purchase message. You have successfully purchased a flight from Jiangxing to Haishur. It will take off at 4 o'clock the day after tomorrow. Please make your plans accordingly. I took screenshots to send to the HR department of the big company, then went inside to pack my belongings. I only took a few changes of clothes, while all those old mementos that I had once treasured in cardboard boxes, carrying the beautiful memories between Xinyu and me, were thrown by me into the fire pit. Inside were the matching bracelets we had specially Rex. Ted from the matchmaking temple, the lip print from our first kiss, and the engagement ring I had spent half a month custom making for Xinyu with our names engraved on the inner band. The sweeter it was before, the more ironic it feels now. I lit my lighter, and as the flames flickered, I let these mementos be consumed by the fire. Halfway through the burning, Xinyu's voice suddenly came from behind me. Han Xiao, what are you burning? She was followed by Ji Yang. Neither of us knew when they had entered. After seeing what was in the fire pit, Xinyu rushed forward like crazy, ignoring her reddened hands, and took the old items out of the fire pit with her bare hands, carefully cradling them in her arms. She then turned and glared at me, saying, Han Xiao, are you crazy? This is our shared memory. How can you just burn it? I looked indifferent. Keeping it just takes up space. It's better to burn it. Xinyu pursed her lips, her eyes fixed on me. At that moment, Jiang noticed the suitcase I had packed behind me, his eyes flickering as he pointed at my luggage and said, Brother Han Xiao, are you planning to run away from home? If I had known you would be so angry about this, I wouldn't have let President Shen accompany me to that event. It's all my fault. I was too lazy to watch him act. I walked past him toward Xinyu and said coldly, Xinyu, let's break up. What did you say? Break up? Are you crazy? Xinyu's eyes suddenly turned cold, looking at me in shock. It's just an event. Do you really need to make such a big deal out of it? Besides, Xiaoyang is sick. Why are you arguing with someone who's ill? Ji Yang's eyes reddened as he seized the opportunity to fan the flames. Ms. Shun, Han Xiao must still be angry with me about the patent and wedding issues. Otherwise, I should just return the patent to him, so you two won't have conflict because of me. He talked about returning it, but made no actual move to do so. It was all just talk. Yet Xinyu was overcome with sympathy, shielding Jiang behind her while glaring coldly at me. Han Xiao, you gave up this patent willingly. How can you ask for something back after you've given it away? If you didn't want to give it up, you shouldn't have pretended to be generous in the first place. I didn't want to give it up, but did she ever give me any other choice? I didn't bother to argue. Even if I did, Xinyu would only accuse me of twisting words. It would be a waste of breath. Seeing me stay silent, Xinyu grew more irritated, her eyes blazing with anger. Han Xiao, what kind of attitude is this? Do you still want to have the wedding or not? Xinyu always liked to use our marriage to manipulate me. We've been together for 7 years, yet she always used company development as an excuse to postpone our marriage again and again. In the past, I would fall for it, MIT my mistakes against my conscience, and humbly beg for her forgiveness. But now, I curled my lips in a cold smile and retorted, We've already broken up, so what wedding are we talking about? Xinyu, we're finished. Ji Yang's eyes were full of determination to take my position, but on the surface, he pretended to dissuade her. Han Xiao, you've been supported by CEO Shen, and your job was given by CEO Shen too. You're already in your 30s. What good job could you find without CEO Shen? Please don't be impulsive. Xinyu also took the opportunity to chime in, saying angry words. Han Xiao, if you keep acting like this, I'll fire you immediately. I smirked coldly. No need to bother. I've already resigned. But Xinyu thought I was just being defiant, and snorted coldly. I haven't approved anything. How could you possibly have resigned? A flash of guilt passed through Ji Yang's eyes, but he quickly returned to normal, saying casually, Brother Han Xiao, no matter how angry you are, you can't joke around with your future. I didn't realize you disliked me so much. I'll resign right away, guarantee to stay far away from Director Shen, and won't come to offend your eyes anymore, so I won't be the sinner who destroys your relationship. He ran toward the door, crying and sobbing. But I stopped him. You don't need to leave. I'll go. Perfect timing to make space for you too. I grabbed my luggage and was about to leave. Seeing my determination, Xinyu gritted her teeth. Han Xiao, I've given you a way out. Do you really want to make a scene? If you continue like this, do you believe I'll cut off your mother's medical expenses? Don't forget, I'm the one paying for your mother's medical bills. My footsteps faltered. I never thought Xinyu would use my mother to manipulate me. Over these years, my mother has been hospitalized with a serious illness, and the medical expenses have been a significant burden. But the medical bills were clearly paid from my salary, yet Xinyu always claimed I was spending her money. I glanced at her and said coldly, You have no right to mention my mother. She's already dead, killed by you. 如果不是你想约了婚礼，她不会因为受到刺激而病危。如果不是你不支付医药费，她也不会长久无效而去世。Xinyu was stunned on the spot, her expression complex. Before she could speak, Jiang seized the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. Brother Han Xiao, I know you're angry, but no matter how angry you are, you shouldn't joke about your aunt. The guilt in Xunyu's eyes was instantly replaced by coldness. Han Xiao, I didn't expect that you could tell such a lie about your own mother's death just to compete for attention. You really want to be stubborn, huh? I'll cut off your mother's medical expenses right now. She directly called the hospital to cut off my mother's medical expenses. Before she finished speaking, she was interrupted by the doctor. Are you referring to Ms. Qin Xiangwan? But she died a week ago. Xin Yu froze, and after hanging up the phone, her face instantly turned ashen. Han Xiao, how could you not tell me about something so important? I laughed bitterly. I tried to find you that day, but didn't you have people throw me out? Hearing this, Xin Yu suddenly seemed to remember something, and a flash of guilt appeared in her eyes. She opened her mouth, about to say something, but was interrupted by Ji Yang. Han Xiao, I can't believe you went so far as to hire actors to help maintain your lie. If your mother found out you were cursing her like this, how heartbroken would she be? I thought Xin Yu would believe him as always. But in the next moment, Xin Yu raised her hand and slapped Ji Yang, saying coldly, "Shut up." Ji Yang was stunned by the slap, frozen in place, holding his reddened face, looking at Xin Yu in disbelief. "Ms. Xin Yu, you hit me?" Seeing this scene, I was also somewhat surprised. After all, Jiang was Xin Yu's most treasured darling. Before this, if Jiang even sneezed, Xin Yu would worry whether he had caught a cold or fallen ill, showing all kinds of concern for his well-being and feeling extremely distressed about it. She had never spoken harshly to him before, always treating him like the apple of her eye, cherishing and spoiling him. But now, she had raised her hand against Ji Yang for my sake. Coming back to my senses, I saw Xin Yu looking at Ji Yang with a cold expression. "Jiang, stop spreading rumors there. I know Han Xiao better than anyone else, so I don't need you pointing fingers and making judgments here. Han Xiao's mother is his bottom line. He would never repeatedly joke about his mother. Previously, when you used underhanded tactics, falsely accusing Han Xiao of adding peanut powder to your drink to cause your allergic reaction, pretending to be sick to gain attention, I turned a blind eye and couldn't be bothered to argue with you. But this time, you've gone too far." I was stunned, raising my eyes to look at Xin Yu. As it turns out, she had always known that Jiang was acting, and she was perfectly clear about all those little tricks he used behind my back. She knew this would hurt me, but she still indulged Jiang in doing so. Afterwards, she even helped Jiang to demote me and reduce my salary, forcing me to apologize against my conscience. She knew very well that I was uncomfortable with her intimate behavior with Jiang, yet she still interacted with him without boundaries right in front of me. Whenever I questioned her about it, she would accuse me of having a dirty mind, malicious speculation, and call me unreasonable. In that moment, I suddenly felt that my past devotion was as ridiculous as a clown. After scolding Jiang, Xin Yu finally turned to look at me with guilt. She walked forward, took my hand, and aid in a softened tone. "Han Xiao, I'm sorry, I didn't know your mother would really. I didn't mean to. It was just that I had a sudden business trip that day, which is why I couldn't attend the wedding and had to stand you up. As for the medical expenses, I thought you were just being jealous again, so I didn't give you the money. If I had known it was for your mother's medical bills, I would have given it to you no matter what." Xin Yu's face was full of apology, but I found it nauseating. Even at this point, there wasn't a single truth in her words. I laughed coldly and said, "Business trip? Xin Yu, are you really taking me for a fool? You clearly went on a world tour with Ji Yang." With her lie exposed, Xin Yu's expression froze, and she stood stunned in place. "Han Xiao, how did you know?" Before she could finish, I directly forwarded to her all the provocative messages Ji Yang had sent me. "I have to thank your good assistant for this. If he hadn't been sending me photos in real time, I wouldn't have known how much fun you two had this week." "Xin Yu, do you know what happened? On the day of the wedding, when you didn't show up, Ji Yang specifically sent me a photo of you two making heart signs at the airport. My mother had a heart attack when she saw that, becoming critically ill. You and Ji Yang are both indirect murderers of my mother." Mentioning my mother, I couldn't help but become emotional. Hearing me say this, Xin Yu's face was filled with guilt, and she immediately shot Ji Yang a death glare. Facing Xin Yu's scrutiny, Ji Yang awkwardly looked away, burying his head low and remaining silent. As the atmosphere became tense, Xin Yu's phone suddenly rang. As soon as she answered, the frantic voice of her secretary came through. "This is terrible, CEO Shun. There's a problem with the patent project that Ji Yang is responsible for. The partner has already contacted the company. Please come back immediately." Xin Yu's fingers gripping the phone turned white from the pressure. "What did you say?" After learning that Ji Yang had added unqualified toxic chemical materials during product manufacturing, she became increasingly dissatisfied with him. "Ji Yang, how could you handle this so poorly? How could you make such a basic mistake?" I wasn't surprised at all. The reason Ji Yang wanted to take over my project in the first place was to substitute inferior materials and take kickbacks in the process. I mentioned this matter to Xin Yu, asking her to be more cautious around Ji Yang, but she accused me of being jealous and spreading malicious rumors about him. Being scolded by Xin Yu, Ji Yang's face turned pale for a moment. Then suddenly his eyes shifted, and he pointed at me saying, "Ms. Shun, I implemented my project strictly according to Brother Han Zhao's patent and planning document. It must be that Brother Han Shi AO resents me for taking his patent and is deliberately trying to sabotage me." He turned his head and looked at me with reddened eyes. "Brother Han Xiao, If you didn't want to give up the patent, you could have just refused. There was no need to pull these underhanded tricks. By doing this, you're not just hurting me, but the entire company. In just a few sentences, Ji Yong successfully shifted the blame onto me. In the past, I would have argued back, would have angrily defended myself. Now, however, I couldn't be bothered to respond. After all, even if I explained, Xinyu would just say I was making excuses. I grabbed my luggage and was about to leave, but Xinyu quickly stepped forward, blocking my way, insisting that I go to the company with her. Giving me no chance to refuse, she and Ji Yong already had me in the car. As soon as we arrived at the company, we saw the business partner inside, furious. Upon seeing us, he immediately rushed over, threw the samples in front of Xinyu, and angrily said, "Ms. Shun, is this your company's attitude toward cooperation? Do you know that these defective products caused many consumers' faces to break out, leading them to demand compensation from me? Our company has lost hundreds of millions. Terminate the contract. We must terminate it. And the person responsible for this project is Shui. I'm going to take him to court and make sure he rots in prison." After these words, everyone turned their gaze toward Ji Yong. Following everyone's line of sight, the business partner walked angrily toward Ji Yong and said through gritted teeth, "It was you." Ji Yong shook his head desperately. With reddened eyes, he tugged at Shun Yu's sleeve, looking pitiful and helpless. The next second, Shin Yu pushed me directly in front of the business partner and said emphatically, "Mr. Li, the person responsible for this project wasn't Ji Yong, but him, Han Xiao." Seeing that Shun Yu didn't give him away, Ji Yong breathed a sigh of relief. I froze on the spot, looking at Shun Yu in disbelief. Even my heart, already wounded and scarred, felt a sharp pain at that moment. I knew Shun Yu favored Ji Yong. Usually when Ji Yong made mistakes, I had to clean up after him, and when Ji Yong offended clients, I was the one who had to drink excessive amounts of alcohol to apologize to them. But I never imagined she would be so biased toward Ji Yong to this extent. I remember in the past, when Xinyu was down on her luck, she was once falsely accused of stealing class funds and couldn't defend herself. When everyone was pointing fingers at her, only I firmly believed in her innocence. For her sake, I frantically gathered evidence to help clear her name. But this unpleasant experience still became Shun Yu's shadow, a wound in her heart that couldn't heal. She used to despise this kind of behavior the most, yet now, for Ji Yang's sake, she had become the very type of person she hated. I couldn't help but laugh coldly inside. Xinyu really did have enough favoritism toward Ji Yong. Coming back to my senses, Ji Yong looked at me with feigned disappointment and said with a pained expression, "Brother Han Xiao, you're being foolish. I warned you early on not to use inferior products in place of good ones. Why didn't you listen? Even if you want to take kickbacks, you can't joke around with consumer safety." Xinyu also gave me a cold look. "Han Xiao, we're all adults here. You should take responsibility for your actions." They worked in tandem, trying to pin the blame firmly on me. Xinyu even signaled with her eyes to the other colleagues, and at her cue, they all chimed in. A pack of ungrateful wolves. Seeing that I remained silent, Xinyu leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Han Xiao, Ji Yong is young and inexperienced. If he goes to prison, his life will be ruined. But you're different. You have seniority and rich life experience. This is nothing for someone like you, so please just bear with it this time." I found it all ironically amusing. Over these years, hasn't she made me endure enough already? She knows that prison ruins lives, so why is she willing to let me go to prison? Seeing my continued silence, Xinyu interlocked her fingers with mine and said with complete sincerity, "Han Xiao, I promise you, when you get out, we'll get married. I will take good care of you for your mother's sake. What I owe you and your mother, I will make up for later." It's the same old story. Whenever Xinyu needs something from me, she makes empty promises, but she has never fulfilled any of the commitments she's made. Thinking about this, I curled my lips into a cold smile. Xinyu thought I had agreed. A glimpse of joy flashed in her eyes, and she tightened her grip on my hand. "Han Xiao, I knew you wouldn't refuse my request. Don't worry this time, I'll keep my word." But in the next second, after hearing what I said, her face instantly turned as white as paper. I brushed away Xinyu's hand and said word by word, "I'm sorry, I'm not in charge of this project. Ji Yong is." I took out my phone and showed her my chat history with Ji Yong. On the day Ji Yong obtained the patent, he specifically sent me a video to show off. In the video, Ji Yong held the patent and the project leader's work badge in his hands, smiling with a look of smug satisfaction. "Han Xiao, whatever I want, I always get. Your fiancée is mine, and the patent you worked hard on and the project you finally signed are mine too. Now, I am the person in charge of this project. Can't help it. Who made me better at winning Xinyu's heart than you?" Yang had a habit of regularly sending me video messages to show off. Initially, when I received these taunting messages, I was furious to the point of breaking down. Gradually, as my feelings for Xinyu grew cold, I also became numb to these provocative messages. After completely giving up on Shunyu, looking at these taunting messages no longer made me sad. I just found them childish and ridiculous. And now, I'm actually grateful that Ji Yong persistently sent me these provocative messages. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to prove my innocence. Once the videos and chat history were revealed, Shunyu and Ji Yang's faces instantly turned pale. Shunyu shot Ji Yong a cold glare, seemingly blaming him for his incompetence. Ji Yong was also shocked, eyes wide open, never imagining that one day he would lift a stone only to drop it on his own foot. The scene became awkward. After the video finished playing, Mr. Lee's expression visibly darkened, and he coldly glared at Ji Yong. So, you are lying to me? The project leader is not Han Xiao at all, but Ji Yong. Hai par, bai li zhong wenzua. Ji Yong xin shu de lung, zhu mao, pan kuro, ta shang chu lik jidri de banfa. Zhu jian ta yan chen yi hong, shen rier chi de kan shang wok. Han Xiao, what did I do to offend you that you would deliberately create fake video chat records to harm me? Xinyu also nodded and said, Mr. Lee, with today's advanced technology, creating fake videos and images isn't difficult at all. This Han Xiao is inherently jealous, and he often abuses his power to bully Xiao Yang when at the company. This time, it must be his scheme. He knows the project has issues and wants to deliberately make Xiao Yang take the blame. Don't be fooled. Xinyu and the others are dead set on making me take the blame. Unfortunately, they are going to miscalculate. I let out a cold laugh. Is that so? But I resigned a week ago. May I ask, General Manager Shun, how could someone who has already resigned possibly be responsible for the project? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Xinyu was dumbfounded on the spot. What did you say? Resign? I never approved your resignation. How could you possibly have resigned? Ji Yang's eyes flashed with momentary guilt, but he quickly returned to normal. He gave me a meaningful glance and indirectly criticized. Brother Han Xiao, one should take responsibility for their actions. You can't lie about resigning just to avoid responsibility. If you knew this would happen, why did it in the first place? Since you did it, you must own up to it. If you voluntarily admit your mistake and sincerely apologize to Manager Lee, perhaps Manager Lee will be lenient and give you a break considering it's your first offense. With just a few words, he redirected the accusation back to me, saying all the good and bad things he wanted to say. Xinyu also cast a displeased look at me, disappointedly saying, Han Xiao, look at yourself. You're not even as sensible as little Yang, who's just a child. A child? But Ji Yang is only 3 years younger than me. Yet Xinyu keeps being lenient with Ji Yang Beck. He's just a child. She always says she takes extra care of him considering his young age. Before, I believed her nonsense and tried to brainwash myself, thinking I was overthinking. Now I realize these were just excuses Xinyu made to cover up her emotional betrayal. I looked at Xinyu and said calmly, to find out whether I'm lying or not, you just need to check the approval records. You really won't give up until you see the Yellow River. Fine, I'll satisfy your request. Xinyu gritted her teeth and started searching for the approval records, trying to prove me wrong. But when she saw that my resignation approval had been processed, she froze, her face turning pale. How is this possible? I never approved your resignation. Before Xinyu could figure it out, Ji Yang pointed at me and said, Brother Han Xiao, I never thought you would deliberately forge resignation approval documents just to evade responsibility. Xinyu looked at me with increasingly disappointed eyes and said sternly, Han Xiao, do you know what you're doing is against the law? You've really disappointed me. I remained calm and composed as I replied, Xinyu, why don't you take a closer look at the time when the approval was granted? At that time, I wasn't even by your side, and I had absolutely no knowledge of your account password. How could I possibly forge it? Rather than suspecting me, you should be suspicious of someone more likely, such as Yang, who knows both your phone password and account password. Hearing this, Xinyu immediately cast a suspicious glance at Ji Yang. Was it you who did it? Seeing no way to evade, Ji Yang could only mutter, Director Shun, I did it accidentally. I just clicked approve without thinking. I've been hiding it all this time because I was afraid you'd blame me. Unlike her angry shouting at me earlier, when facing Ji Yang, Xinyu was remarkably gentle and patient, only saying, don't let it happen again. Double standards. Xinyu turned to look at me and said coldly, since it was an accident, your resignation is invalid. But I just gave a cold laugh. My resignation process was completely legal and compliant. Why would it be invalid? Besides, I've already quit, which is enough to prove that this project wasn't my responsibility. Mr. Lee, don't let yourself be deceived. Reminded by me, Mr. Lee glared at Xinyu in anger. Ms. Shun, are you treating me like a fool? As Xinyu tried to say something more, Mr. Lee coldly interrupted. Enough, there's nothing more to discuss. We'll see you in court, and your company can prepare to pay 10 times compensation. And as for Ji Yang, the project manager, I'll sue him until he rots in prison. Mr. Lee left in anger. After Mr. Lee left, Ji Yang panicked. pitifully tugging at Shun Yu's sleeve, begging, "Ms. Jiang, please help me, I don't want to go to prison." Shun Yu was immediately overcome with concern, embracing him comfortingly, while looking up at me, attempting to make me take the fall for him. "Han Xiao, Xiaoyang is at fault, but do you have no faults at all? If you had advised Xiaoyang in advance and guided him more, he wouldn't have made such a big mistake. Moreover, the patent and the project originally belonged to you, so you should take responsibility for it." I rolled my eyes. "Shin Yu, I'm not even an employee anymore. What responsibility do I have?" Seeing that a hard approach wasn't working, Shin Yu started to bring up the past favor she had done for me. "Han Xiao, don't forget that I saved you back then. You owe me a life-saving favor." I still wore an indifferent expression. "But I have already repaid your life-saving favor long ago. From the moment my mother died, we have been even." Shin Yu opened her mouth, wanting to say something more. But I couldn't be bothered to listen any longer and turned to leave without looking back. After leaving, I took a taxi home, grabbed my luggage, and then used the travel expenses sent by the HR from the big company to find a hotel to rest, preparing to go to Haishur for onboarding in 2 days. During this time, Shin Yu frantically called me and sent messages, pleading for me to help Xiaoyang. I read all of them but did not reply. Seeing that I didn't reply, Shin Yu also became irritated and began using threats and inducements. "Han Xiao, what does read without replying mean? Stop playing dead, say something. I'm giving you an opportunity to prove yourself. Don't forget, you've already resigned, and with the job market being so difficult right now, and at your age, what good job could you find besides working with me? If I go to prison for Xiaoyang, I'll marry you as soon as you get out and promote you to deputy general manager as compensation. You're a smart person, you should know how to choose, right?" I laughed. Shin Yu was still as confident as ever. How could she not consider that if I didn't have a backup plan, why would I resign? Besides, it was never me who couldn't leave the company, but the company that couldn't leave me. I coldly replied, "No need, I've already found a job." I sent screenshots of the job offers from big companies to Shun Yu, and without waiting for her response, I decisively blocked and deleted her. Without Shin Yu's harassment and the pressure from work, I slept extraordinarily soundly and peacefully. 2 days later, I reported to the major company in High City for my new job, channeling my grief and anger into motivation, focusing entirely on my career. The atmosphere at the major company was excellent, with colleagues helping each other, a boss who was considerate of subordinates, clear rewards and punishments, and a very humane approach. In this working environment, I was also filled with motiva. Tie-in. Less than half a month after joining, I had secured more than a dozen partnerships, exceeding performance targets, and was promoted with salary increases twice, with bright prospects ahead. While my career was flourishing, looking at Shun Yu, things were quite miserable for her. I heard that not long after that day, CEO Li took Ji Yang and Shun's company to court. When Ji Yang realized he might go to prison, he immediately shifted the blame to Shun Yu. These were all things Shun Yu told me to do. If anyone should go to prison, it should be her. It has nothing to do with me. Shun Yu never imagined that Ji Yang, whom she had always protected, would turn around and stab her in the back. Furious, she immediately slapped him across the face. "Ji Yang, I've been so good to you. Why would you do this to me?" Ji Yang just laughed, directly revealing his true intentions, saying he had approached Shin Yu just for the money. "If it weren't for the money, why would I be with an old woman like you? You don't actually think I love you, do you? Stop flattering yourself." Only then did Shin Yu realize she had given her heart to the wrong person, cursing Yang as a scumbag, while screaming as she lunged forward, scratching and clawing at him. Yang wasn't about to back down either, swinging his fists and striking Shin Yu. In the end, the two of them ended up in a physical altercation right in the courtroom, and it took the police to forcibly separate them. In the end, the court ordered Shin Yu to pay Mr. Li 10 times the penalty for breach of contract, while Ji Yang was immediately imprisoned for producing counterfeit products that caused severe social harm. All this was told to me by a colleague who attended the court hearing. He also knew that after this incident, Shun's company was practically finished, and was trying to get on my good side, hoping I would help him network so he could find a new job. But after enjoying the drama, I simply deleted him. When he kicked me while I was down back then, he should have anticipated this day would come. After that, my colleague stopped bothering me, but Shin Yu came to find me. That day, when I got home from work, I opened the door and saw a familiar figure busy in the kitchen. It was Shin Yu. I frowned. "What are you doing here?" Seeing it was me, Shin Yu immediately came over, ingratiatingly saying. I knocked for a long time and no one answered, so I found a locksmith to open the door and came in. "Han Xiao, you came back just in time. I just learned to make a few dishes, all your favorites. Braised king crab, Westlake vinegar fish, all your favorites. Come sit down and try them." As she spoke, Shin Yu had already brought out several plates of steaming hot dishes from the kitchen. I was somewhat surprised. In my memory, Shin Yu had always been one to keep her fingers away from housework and never cooked. Previously, when I had a fever, I just asked her to cut an orange to make orange soup, but she was unwilling, complaining it would dirty her hands and that kitchen fumes would damage her skin. I could only force myself out of bed despite my illness to make myself orange throat-soothing soup. But now, she personally cooked for me? In a daze, Shinyu pulled me to the table and stuffed a piece of fish into my mouth. I turned my head to avoid it and dumped all the dishes into the trash can. Shinyu's eyes turned red instantly. Her hand holding the food froze in the air. Han Xiao, I know you're angry with me, but I realize my mistake and have tried my best to make up for it. Why won't you give me a chance? Why do you have to trample on my feelings like this? These dishes were specially made for you. But I just laughed. Specially made? Then how come you didn't even know I'm allergic to seafood? I'm sorry, Han Xiao, I overlooked that. What do you like to eat? Tell me, and I'll cook for you again. Shinyu's face turned awkward for a moment. Then she turned to go back to the kitchen to cook for me again. But I stopped her. There's no need. It's impossible for us, so don't do anything meaningless. Shinyu stood there, nervously fiddling with her apron, tears welling up in her eyes, choking back her words. Han Xiao, I'm sorry, you told me long ago that Ji Yang was unreliable, but I didn't listen to your advice and kept doubting you. It's all my fault. But I'm also a victim. I was also deceived by Ji Yang. Why won't you give me a chance to atone? Shinyu became more and more agitated and rushed over to grab my hand. Han Xiao, I was wrong. Can we get back together? I only now realize that you were the one who treated me the best. The company and I can't do without you. No matter what, the company is half of your hard work. Can you bear to see it go bankrupt? The dagger is revealed at the end of the plot, right? I know that Shinyu's attempt to win me back might have some sincerity, but it's more about wanting me to help her save the company, share the debt burden, and continue being her useful workhorse. But I've woken up, and I don't want to be a bitter victim anymore. I didn't even look up, coldly shaking off Shinyu's hand. Shinyu, you knew the company was my blood and sweat, yet you allowed Ji Yang to ruin it, making me take the blame time after time. All of this is what you deserve, so stop trying to emotionally manipulate me. We could never be together again. It was completely over between us the moment you abandoned me for Ji Yang and caused my mother's death. Now that we have broken up, your matters have nothing to do with me, and I will no longer care. Shinyu wanted to say something more, but I had already given her marching orders and driven her away. Shinyu clung tightly to the door, tears streaming down her face, trying to cling on desperately. Han Xiao, if you don't agree to get back together with me, I won't leave. Not leaving, huh? Then don't blame me for calling the police for trespassing. I took out my phone, pretending to call the police. Seeing that I was serious, Shinyu could only leave reluctantly. I thought that after this, Shinyu would give up, but unexpectedly, she became even more relentless, crazily pursuing her husband. She either blocks my door to deliver love bento boxes or shows up at the company entrance, holding a loudspeaker and roses, publicly declaring her love and demanding to get back together. I even called the police to have her removed. When Shinyu came to my company for the 52nd time, harassing me with the love token, my patience was completely exhausted, and I decisively smashed the token. Shinyu, once the jade is broken, it cannot be whole again. A broken mirror cannot be reunited. Let's part on good terms, and don't make me hate you. At my shout, Shinyu's eyes instantly dimmed. She didn't say a word, just kept crying, then squatted down to pick up the shards on the ground, leaving in desolation. After that day, Shinyu didn't come to find me again, and my life returned to peace and tranquility. But soon, this hard-won peace was shattered again. One day after work, just as I stepped out of the company door, a disheveled madman rushed in front of me with a sharp knife. While waving the knife, he yelled angrily, Han Xiao, you harm others. You've made me this way, yet you live so freely. How is that fair? I will kill you. Upon closer inspection, it was the released Ji Yang. In a daze, the sharp knife was about to pierce my heart. Just then, a figure suddenly sprang out from the bushes, standing in front of me, allowing the knife to pierce through their heart. After seeing her face clearly, I was stunned. Shinyu, why are you here? As the knife was pulled out, blood splattered, and Shinyu fell into my arms, whispering with her last breath. I know you hate me, so I didn't appear before you, just silently protecting you. Han Xiao, I truly regret it. Please don't hate me anymore, okay? Shinyu's eyes reddened, tears of remorse falling. Before she could finish speaking, she had already lost too much blood and passed out. Ji Yang's eyes were bloodshot with murderous intent as he raised the knife to stab me again. At this critical moment, the police arrived and took him away. It turned out my colleague who hadn't left work yet noticed something was wrong and called the police from upstairs. With conclusive evidence, Ji Yang was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 15 years. Meanwhile, I rushed Shinyu to the hospital for emergency treatment. Luckily, Shinyu's wound hadn't hit any vital organs, and she survived. 2 days later, when Shinyu woke up, I happened to buy flowers. to visit her. Seeing her awake, I handed her the flowers. Xinyu, thank you for saving my life. Xinyu's eyes lit up at this. Han Xiao, does this mean you forgive me and are willing to get back together? Don't worry, once I'm healed, I'll immediately go to your mother's grave to bow and apologize. She reached out to take my hand, but I sidestepped and dal. Xinyu, I think you misunderstood. I only have gratitude for you. There won't be any other feelings. There are lives between us, and my mother is in the way. It's impossible for us to get back together. Xinyu's hand felt empty. Her eyes were red as she stared at me, seemingly trying to read my emotions from my face. After seeing that my expression remained cold, she knew I wasn't just throwing a tantrum. It was at this moment that she truly realized she had lost me, her hands dropping limply to her sides as she wept openly. But this time, I didn't soften my heart. Instead, I turned and left without looking back. From now on, we are like two parallel lines that will never intersect. Not long after, Jiyang was tortured to death in prison, and Xinyu, greatly traumatized by this, lost her mind. By that time, I had been promoted to deputy general manager. 3 years later, I got married and had a child, and brought my wife and child to visit my mother's grave. From now on,